Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here, and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. FPL is finally back, and in this video, it is going to have pretty much everything you need to know ahead of Game Week 30, including the blanks, doubles, projections, chip strategy, whether or not I'm wildcarding, and I'm currently leaning towards doing so, my own team, some advice for you, and much, much more. If you're excited for FPL to be back, please do smash that like button. Make sure to subscribe as well, but without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, as you can imagine, this video is going to be a pretty long one, and I apologize to absolutely no one because we've had 2 weeks off from FPL and there is so much to cover, from injuries to blanks and doubles to wildcard to my own team as well. I'm not even really sure what to call this video, but it's just a bit of everything and hopefully everything you need right now to get you back on track with FPL. So if you do enjoy the video, please do smash that like button. And if you've never watched my videos before, or you've just decided to never subscribe, please do consider subscribing. If you want to stick with me for the whole video, I'd love that and appreciate that. But if not, there are timestamps down below if you want to skip to a specific section. Just click on it, skip to that section, watch that, and hopefully that will give you the info you need. So, as always, I'll try to do this in a chronological way, and the best place to start is with the Game Week 34 postponements and how that might impact doubles and blanks coming up. So just to recap, the fixtures during the Game Week 34 weekend are played at the same time as the FA Cup semi-final games, which basically means any Premier League teams that reach the FA Cup semi-final and the team they're playing against in Game Week 34 cannot go ahead on the weekend of Game Week 34. That therefore means that we essentially have blank game weeks, and that fixture that has been postponed has to be put somewhere else, which causes doubles. That's basically how blanks and doubles work in FPL. What that therefore means is that we are almost definitely going to have some blanks in 34, and therefore doubles likely in Game Week 33. So as of right now, Man City versus Aston Villa is like 99% sure to be a blank in Game Week 34, and we are expecting this, and when I say we, it's a little bit me, but also again, James from Planet FPL and Ben Krellin, we're expecting this to move to double Game Week 33. That is the most likely fixture to go into double Game Week 33. The other one that is almost definitely going to go into double Game Week 33 is Arsenal and Crystal Palace. The reason these can't be played in the midweek of Game Week 34 is because the midweek of Game Week 34 is European football. So what that essentially means is that we are expecting those four teams, City, Aston Villa, Arsenal and Crystal Palace, to blank in Game Week 34 and therefore double in Game Week 33. We'll discuss that in a bit more detail in a second. The fixture that is a little bit different is actually Forest versus Brentford. Forest versus Brentford also cannot take place on the weekend of Game Week 34 because, of course, Nottingham Forest, and congratulations Forest fans, have reached the semi-finals. So that can't happen at the weekend of Game Week 34. The reason it is very unlikely to move to double Game Week 33 along with the other two fixtures is because Forest are set to play on the Monday night in Game Week 33. So they're playing on the Monday. Therefore, for them to have a midweek game in Game Week 33 and therefore a double, they would have to play on the Thursday, right? Because they couldn't play on the Tuesday or Wednesday because they're playing on the Monday and the turnaround would be far too quick. So it would have to be Monday then Thursday. However, they've drawn Aston Villa in the FA Cup semi-finals, and that game is going ahead on Saturday at 5:30 p.m. So they're not going to be playing Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. They can't even play Monday, Thursday, Saturday. Basically, that game can't go into Game Week 33. It also can't go into Game Week 35 because they're also playing on the Monday, and they are playing against, I should have brought this up, but they're playing against Crystal Palace on the Monday in Game Week 35. So it also can't be a double in Game Week 35. What this therefore means is that there are two options for where this Forest-Brentford game could go. It could go into Game Week 36, and we do know that there is the possibility for doubles to happen in the midweek of Game Week 36. Or more likely, it's just rearranged for the midweek of Game Week 34, because neither Forest nor Brentford are in Europe. What that would mean, therefore, is whilst the fixture is postponed and then rearranged, it's just rearranged for the very same game week, which means that Forest and Brentford don't have an extra double, but they don't have a blank either. So to recap that, these are the 6 teams and the 3 fixtures that have to be postponed for the weekend of Game Week 34. The first 2, City, Villa, Arsenal, Palace, are very likely, not confirmed, but very likely to move to double Game Week 33. And then Forest, Brentford, we're not as confident about this, but again, very likely is it will just stay in Game Week 34. It's a bit sad, really, because as you can see, there aren't many doubles or blanks really caused by the FA Cup as a result. But let's now move on to the overall schedule and then going through some of the possible chip strategies that we might have. So guys, as a result of the FA Cup games and our updated projections, this is what the schedule currently looks like. And I know there'll be lots of questions about when will we find this out. We could find this out on the day of you watching this. I'm recording this on Sunday evening. We might find this out on Monday. We might find it out on Tuesday. I would expect more likely we find out on Thursday or Friday. So before the Game Week 31 deadline, but after the 30 deadline. But I don't know that for a fact. But I would say this is very likely to be the case, at least for 33 and 34. So we have the double in Game Week 32, absolutely confirmed for Crystal Palace and Newcastle. So what you can do as of right now is just bring in Crystal Palace and Newcastle players. That's nice and straightforward. For Game Week 33 and 34, like I said, we're expecting 4 teams to blank in 34, which is Aston Villa, City, Arsenal, Palace, and they will move into Game Week 33. What that then causes is a double followed by a blank. The teams that blank are the ones that double. So you really want essentially 2 different teams for 33 and 34. Because you'd ideally like probably 12 players from those 4 teams in 33, but you're not going to want those 12 in Game Week 34. That's where the free hit becomes incredibly useful, because you either free hit in Game Week 33 or you free hit in Game Week 34 to deal with wanting to have 2 different teams. The other option you've got is wildcarding probably in Game Week 34. So you basically build a perfect team for Game Week 33 and then wildcard out of that in 34. If you're sat there with no wildcard or free hit, it becomes a lot trickier for you. It means you can't really afford to fully attack 33 because you have 34 in the back of your mind. There is also the possibility for blanks and doubles in 36 and 37. I don't want to massively get into that now because, honestly, we don't know if it will be the case, and it also depends on a few other things. But if Aston Villa and also maybe City reach the final of the FA Cup, which at the moment seems quite possible, right? The 2 of them reaching it. And also Spurs continue to progress in the Europa League. It might cause a situation where they can't have their fixture in 37. And as a result, Spurs and Villa, that is. And as a result, it will move to Game Week 36 instead. There are also other things that could happen that might cause a little bit of a double in 36 too. We also spoke about there is the small possibility that that Forest-Brentford game goes to 36 as well. So Game Week 36 does have a small possibility, or at least a reasonable possibility, of being a double game week, but we don't know exactly what that might look like. And as a result, if you do want to maybe save the free hit, and you're thinking, you know what, it just doesn't inspire me that much playing it, or I want to maybe keep the triple captain for a future opportunity, there is a chance that we get a double in 36 as well. I wouldn't honestly factor that in much at all in your decision making. I would really focus on 32, 33, 34, because that's right ahead of us. There's lots to attack, and we have a bit more information about whether it's actually going to happen or not. Hopefully that overall schedule makes sense now. So let's move on to a little bit more of the juicy stuff and start thinking about the teams that we might want to target over the coming game weeks. So we've just gone through the overall schedule across the season and also for 32, 33, 34. What I also thought would be useful before moving on to some chip strategy discussion is actually looking at those 5 teams that have a double in either 32 or 33, or in the case of Crystal Palace, both 32 and 33. And there are a few things just by glancing at this that stand out to me. The first thing that stands out to me is that none of these teams have particularly tricky fixtures even outside of the double game week. In fact, most of their tricky fixtures happen to fall inside the double. So like Crystal Palace, yes, they face Arsenal, but it's part of double 33. Yes, Aston Villa have City away. You could call that a difficult fixture. It's as part of the double. So actually, not only do these teams have doubles in which we love attacking because you have 2 chances, but outside of that, they've got some really nice fixtures. Like Aston Villa in 32 play Southampton. City this week play Leicester. This week, Crystal Palace play Southampton. Newcastle in 34, if you're not free hitting them, play Ipswich. Leicester in 31 for them. So they've all got pretty decent fixtures in and around those double game weeks as well. The other thing that stands out to me about these 5 teams, and again, these are the only 5 teams we're expecting that will have a double in 32 or 33, is that they all have pretty good fixtures this week. Arsenal against Fulham at home, maybe not the best fixture, and you could argue Aston Villa against Brighton away probably isn't great. But the other 3 teams, Newcastle, Palace, and City, have a really attackable fixture this week. We talk about entry points a lot, or at least I talk about entry points a lot in FPL. And what I mean by an entry point is, if I want to own a player from a team or own players from a team that have a good set of fixtures, what is the ideal entry point for them? What is the best fixture to bring them in? It's at the start of a really nice run. This is the start of the nice run for all of those 3 teams in Newcastle, Palace, and City. And then obviously from next week, or even this week, you'd be very happy to own Arsenal players. So when we're talking about trying to time that wildcard and trying to time loading up, yes, you could wildcard next week for Triple Palace, and a lot of people will wildcard in 31 for Triple Palace, but wouldn't you rather have Triple Palace now? Next week, you might wildcard in Gvardiol and Marmoush, but wouldn't you rather have them now? This is the issue with wildcard 31 that we knew, is that a lot of the teams would want and players would want. We actually kind of ideally like them in Game Week 30 as well. What else stands out to me here? I think quite possibly Newcastle, right? It's a really, really nice run if, and this is the big if you are not free hitting in 34, Newcastle look absolutely ideal because they don't have any blanks. They have that fixture in against Ipswich in 34 in the week where a lot of other players won't play. It's just a really nice set of fixtures. Where Newcastle get a bit trickier is if you're free hitting in 34, you don't need that Ipswich game anyway. And if you're bench boosting in 33, they've got Villa away. So if you're on the bench boost 33, free hit 34 strategy, Newcastle actually suck a little bit from 33 onwards, right? Because they don't give you a good bench boost and you don't need them for 34. And then they come back into your team for Brighton away. So you can see already why chip strategy is so important. Crystal Palace obviously stand out because they have the double-double. So if you wildcard now, or have their players from now, you get them against Southampton. Brighton's fine, it's a home game. And then back-to-back doubles. And again, if you're free hitting in 34, you don't need to worry about the blank. Yes, those 4 fixtures are not good. Newcastle, City, Bournemouth, Arsenal, none of them are great, but Palace are playing really well, and you'd still expect some of their players to get points. You don't need Palace to win every single game. Also, for those on assistant manager, Glasner there with some possible table bonuses, that looks really, really tasty. So you've got some really nice options there from Crystal Palace. I also think just Arsenal and City are just good teams. I know City have struggled this season, but it's a nice set of fixtures you'd want to own them for. Arguably the team that maybe not worries me the most, but I'm the least convinced by is probably Aston Villa. The fixtures are a bit of a mixed bag outside of 32. We know that they're still in Europe at the moment, so there might be some rotation. Even with the likes of Asensio and Rashford, who have looked so good, and Luca Dean, 3 assets I'd love to have, rotation has been quite heavy. You could go for a Morgan Rogers, but his data's dropped off a cliff. I'm not massively inspired by the Aston Villa options as much, but the other 4 teams in particular, I'd absolutely love to attack. So hopefully that's useful to just be able to visualize it. I want to absolutely categorically say again, none of this is fully confirmed, right? We know that those teams can't play on the weekend of 34. That is confirmed. But whether or not they'll move to 33, we haven't had confirmation on that. We just think it's extremely, extremely likely. Let's now move on to a bit of a chip strategy chat, pull that all together, discuss Wildcard 30 versus 31, and then my own team as well. So hopefully you're following me to this point. I thought this would be a good stage now to discuss chip strategy before we then move on to Wildcard 30 versus 31 for those that have it and those that are potentially looking to play it this week. And then I'll also discuss what I'm currently planning with my team and why I might be leaning towards a wildcard myself. So what I've got on your screen here is chip strategy according to whether you have the assistant manager or not. Of course, there is also the triple captain. You might have the assistant manager, but not the bench boost. I can't really go through every possible chip strategy depending on the combinations. But what the top 2 strategies are assuming is that you've got wildcard, bench boost, free hit, but no assistant manager. And then the lower strategies are you have wildcard, bench boost, free hit, but you've also got the additional assistant manager in there. If you don't fall under those categories, still listen along, and hopefully you can come to your own conclusions based on what I'm saying. All of these include wildcard in 30 or 31. If your team is really well set up now for everything that I just spoken about, you've got the players from those teams, or you've got free transfers and you don't need it, a wildcard in 34 or 35 could work incredibly well. And I would not rule it out. But for most of us, we probably do need a wildcard in one of the next couple of weeks. So, with that in mind, strategy 1 and strategy 2 are basically identical, but one is free hit 34 and one is free hit 33. So one you free hit in the blank, one you free hit in the double. What this will come down to is the players that you want to own longer term. And I just think when I've looked at wildcard drafts, setting up to free hit in the blank makes more sense because the players that double in 33, such as Crystal Palace, I'd want to own them in 32 anyway. Arsenal have great fixtures outside of that. City have really nice fixtures as well. I want to own the players that double in 33 outside of that double. So therefore, free hitting in that week to bring them in, well, I'd want to own them anyway. So therefore, for me, at the moment, and I've not fully committed to this, but it just looks a little bit more sensible at the moment to free hit in 34 instead. What that would leave then is I wildcard this week or next week, and again, we'll discuss which I prefer. Bench boost in one of 32 or 33, and a free hit 34 leaves the option open of bench boosting in 32 or 33, and then you free hit in 34. You might think to yourself, well, obviously you bench boost in 33, that's the bigger double. Remember, only 4 teams are doubling, right? So if you own 3 players from the 4 teams that double in 33, you would have 12 doubling players. What that essentially means is regardless of whether you bench boost in 32 or 33, you're going to have at least 3 single game week players on your bench. You can't get to 15 doublers because the double game weeks aren't big enough. So it doesn't really matter if you bench boost in 32 or 33. You're probably bench boosting with at least 3, if not 4 single game week players. In some situations, 5 or 6. So yeah, I think that a bench boost in 32 could work really well, as I'll discuss. I don't mind strategy 2 if that could work for you. There are other options, like I say, if you want to wildcard a bit later. But if you've got the same 3 chips as me, because that's what position I'm in right now, I'm slightly leaning towards strategy 1. With regards to whether you've got the assistant manager or not, in that situation, you've got 2 possible places to place the assistant manager. One is 31 to 33, because you've got the double in 32 and the double in 33. So assuming you play it in 32 on Glasner or Howe, you have 5 fixtures in 3 weeks. That works really well. The other option is that you instead place the bench boost in those weeks and you assistant manager towards the back end of the season when it won't interfere with other chips. So both of them would involve a wildcard around now. In strategy A, you would have to wildcard this week because you'd need to assistant manager next week. They both involve free hit 34. It's basically just flipping the bench boost in the assistant manager. So the reason that I prefer strategy A, the assistant manager is a much more powerful and important chip. The bench boost is nowhere near as good of a chip as assistant manager because assistant manager gives you 3 weeks and it's just got a really high ceiling, as we've seen already this season. So if I am trying to prioritize the assistant manager, I would rather play the assistant manager in a week where we have 2 confirmed doubles. We may well have no double game week in 36. I think we probably will, but we might not. So you might go from having 5 fixtures in 31 to 33 versus 3 in 35 to 37. I just said that whether you bench boost in 33 or 36 or 32, you're probably going to have single game week players anyway. So I don't think by bench boosting later in the season, you're really weakening the bench boost that much. So I just think strategy A makes more sense. The only concern with strategy A is you have to wildcard this week. You don't have the option like you do in all of the other strategies of wildcarding in 31. Hopefully that helps. I mean, that's quite a short version of chip strategy. I could talk about it for hours. I think unless your team is absolutely brilliant, you're probably looking at a wildcard in the next 2 weeks. If it is, great. Wildcard in 34 or 35. Once you've made that decision, I just think free hit 34, because again, the players you want to own for 32, 33 are good outside that. I think free hit 34 makes a lot of sense. And then you just fill in the bench boost, triple captain, assistant manager in and around that. So with that in mind, wildcard 30, 31, you guys will know I've been very keen on a wildcard 31 for a while now. So why am I maybe considering changing my mind? So it has been my birthday over the weekend. I turned 28 on Saturday, so feel free to wish me a happy birthday. And if you do want to do something for my birthday, because I didn't actually upload a video on my birthday, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it. But despite it being my birthday, I was already starting to think, do you know what? Wildcard 30 could work, especially as the way that the FA Cup games went. We started to get a much better prediction than we thought we might. Certain teams winning might have made it a little bit more complicated to try and predict, but the way that the fixtures have gone, or the way the results have gone, I should say, it feels like we can make a pretty good prediction. Not with certainty, but pretty good prediction. So I was already a little bit tempted. Then with Erling Haaland picking up an injury, and I don't know the extent of the injury right now, it makes me even more tempted because that's just another issue to sort this week. One of the benefits of my team already is that I had him in place to potentially captain. So if you didn't see, I think Zabani landed on his ankle, but it was definitely an ankle injury. And after the game, he was seen in a protective boot and on crutches. Now, players do that for all sorts of injuries. We've seen it throughout I think, was it Maddison a few months ago, or was it last season? But he went off in a boot, played in the next game. We've seen Bruno Fernandes a couple of days before the game last season was laying there in a protective boot. His partner uploaded a picture. We all thought he was going to be out for months and he ended up playing. So a boot doesn't tell us everything, but it was enough to force him off. He looked in pain and he's on crutches in a boot and they play again in 3 days. Why would they risk him against Leicester, especially with Marmoush looking so good? So I would say at the moment, it looks fairly likely that Haaland probably doesn't play the Leicester game unless we get a really positive update from Pep and we see him in training. And even if we do we have as much confidence? So that's another thing that's just making me think, if Haaland's not available, could sell Haaland, spread the funds, and that becomes an option. But then if he's back again, well, then the same thing applies, that Haaland's arguably the best captain in Game Week 33. I guess what I'm saying here is I think 30 has always been viable, but the way that it's been going over the last couple of days, there's more and more reasons. So let's go through pros for Wildcard 30, pros for Wildcard 31, and discuss which one I'm leaning towards at the moment. So again, one of the pros for Wildcard 30, we can make a very good prediction. I hopefully have already done that for you. And whilst I can't promise you that's correct, and the Premier League can really do whatever they want, it feels the most likely setup where those games from 34 go to 33. So with that good prediction in mind, I feel like we can make a fairly secure wildcard draft that is robust enough that it doesn't get massively damaged if they decide to throw a curveball in there. The most important thing for me is that most of the players, as I said, that we want for 32 and 33 have a great fixture this week. If I want triple Palace, they've got Southampton. I want triple Newcastle, they've got Brentford. I want 2 or 3 City, they've got Leicester. It feels like a good week to bring those players in Game Week 30. Now, they also have good fixtures from 31 and beyond, but you are missing the ideal entry point for a lot of them. The next thing is, as I said, if Haaland is a doubt, fine, you can sell him this week rather than wildcarding, but you're going to have to use multiple transfers to then make the most of that money. Like, I could do something like Haaland to Isak, but I couldn't then upgrade the rest of my team because that would be my free transfers done. So on the wildcard, you could spread that. You also will have a few game weeks before 33, 34. So if something crops up that you pick Livramento on your wildcard and all of a sudden he loses his place somehow, I don't know how he would, but that happens, then yeah, if there are a couple of things that crop up, you've got those free transfers. Now, you don't really want to be relying on those transfers to solve issues. You'd rather use them and save them to make more luxury moves, but it's not like you won't have free transfers over the coming game weeks. And the final thing is, Game Week 31 is only 5 days later. It's not like we're going to get so much more information, I don't think anyway, that is going to massively, drastically change the wildcard, unless, again, the Premier League decide to do something crazy with the rescheduling. Or unless we pick up injuries to like Marmoush, Isak, Mateta, and all of a sudden our team is decimated. In 5 days, you're probably going to get a few bits that might change, but it won't change, hopefully, too much. So those are all the pros for Wildcard 30. In terms of pros for Wildcard 31, most of our teams don't need a wildcard. Like, you'll see mine in a second. I can get away pretty comfortably with not wildcarding this week. I don't need one. Whether or not needing one should be the way that you decide to play it, I don't know. You could definitely attack, but I definitely don't need a wildcard this week. The next thing to note is we are likely to have the confirmation of the 33 doubles, but you do never know. But we're expecting before the 31 deadline to have them, and probably not before the Game Week 30 deadline. What that therefore means is that we are making decisions with 100% certainty of when the doubles might fall. I just said that, yes, there is only 5 days in between 30 and 31, but there are so many unknowns. We still don't have 100% confirmation on the doubles. Bukayo Saka is back in training. Is he available right now, or is it going to take a little bit longer? If he's available right now, I want Saka in my team for that double in 33. Erling Haaland, we probably won't get a definitive update. We might find out that he's not available, but if he's back again for 31, do I want to leave money in the bank? Do I just want to have him in anyway? There are other things as well, and these are really small things. Burn versus Livramento, another game to just assess that decision. Is Pope continuing to get the number 1 spot in that Newcastle team? These are just pieces, like, or let's say Dubravka got injured in training. I'd be very likely to go for Nick Pope, but as of right now, I'm a little bit more cautious. Now, these are only small decisions, but you could collect quite a lot of information. It's never a terrible thing to just wait and get a bit more info. I've never massively, and this could be the week where I do, but I've never massively regretted just waiting a little bit longer. I quite like offsetting my wildcard by a week. I did it earlier this season, and people are probably sick of me talking about Cunha, but me offsetting my wildcard, I think everyone else went in 6 and I went in 7 or something like that, but it allowed me to go for 8 Nuri and Cunha, because the entry point was better for Wolves. I saw another week of Cunha looking very good, and I wanted him in my team. Offsetting by a week might just allow you to get a couple more cheeky differentials that those that wildcard in 30 wouldn't. The other thing is, it would give me another 5 days to really think about bench boost 32 versus 33 and the implications of that on my team. Because as of right now, I'm still not sure if I wildcard this week, whether I'd be wildcarding to set up a bench boost in 32 or a bench boost in 33. The team that I've built right now, which I'll show you at the end of the video, it is with either of them in mind. Like, it looks fine for 32 and it could also work for 33, but it would probably be better to build a team knowing for sure. And I just don't know that I'm going to know that yet, because I don't know exactly when the doubles are. And I need to think more about those surrounding cheaper players that would sit on the bench, especially for teams like Aston Villa, for example. My heart is telling me that I trust the likes of Ben Crellin, James, and I think their predictions are probably pretty spot on. And I don't imagine that a wildcard 30 will look too different to a wildcard 31. And if that's what my heart's telling me, then I think it makes sense to go now. All it would require, though, is the predictions to be wrong, one or two major injuries, or one or two extra pieces of info, and the wildcard draft could look very different between the two. Right? Like I say, let's say, for example, Saka is suddenly back fit, and it looked like he wasn't for 30, but all of a sudden he is for 31. And let's say Erling Haaland's back fit, and we get a piece of information around a player. Let's say a major other player gets injured. I don't know. Mohamed Salah picks up a little knock, which hopefully he doesn't. It's all thrown open, right? You're having to use transfers to redistribute the funds to get to Haaland. You're then thinking, do I need Saka to bring... It could quite easily change with just a couple of injuries here and there. But you could say that everywhere. You could say, for example, well, I'm not going to wildcard in 31 because between 31 and 32, we could get in... You're going to have to do it at some point. And there is always a risk with a wildcard that straight after wildcarding, you might run into issues. When I was going through the list of pros, like I had many more in my head for wildcard 30. The only real one for 31 is that there is a chance that the Premier League do something crazy with the rescheduling. If the Premier League act accordingly and logically, I think wildcard 30 is strong enough to do now. Which is why I'm tempted to do it, but you run a risk, of course. All I will say on wildcard 30 before we then look at my team and my wildcard draft, it's not likely to go horrifically. You are still owning really good players. You're still owning players that have doubles in 32 in Crystal Palace and Newcastle. You're bringing in Arsenal players. Even if the doubles don't fall the way you think in 33, you've still got a good team for the next few weeks, and then you might just have to take hits or change when you plan on playing the bench boost or free hit. I think we are probably over-dramatizing in our mind how bad it would be if we got these predictions wrong. So, I don't know, basically. I essentially think, in an ideal world, I think you should wildcard in 31, just to confirm. But considering the state that a lot of your teams are in, and my team's not in a great position, considering the entry point for a lot of the teams this week, I also think Gameweek 30 wildcard has got a lot stronger than I thought about a week ago. So, let's move on to my team now. This is almost like another team selection video. My team, what I'm thinking, and then discuss a wildcard draft as well. So now that we've gone through all of that information, discussed the pros and cons of a wildcard 30 versus 31, here is my team. I don't know if this will technically be my team selection or if there might be a more updated team selection tomorrow or another wildcard. I don't exactly know how the videos will go over the next couple of days, but I just thought I would do a sort of everything you need to know video here. And so let's discuss my team. I don't need to go through all of the players in detail because if I don't wildcard this week, I'll wildcard next week. So I don't need to discuss keeping the players long-term, future transfers. It's just this week versus next week. So we've spoken about the pros and cons of 30 versus 31, but specifically for my team, I really don't need it. I've got Munoz and Mateta already. Lots of people are wildcarding to buy Crystal Palace players. I've already got the two best Palace players, in my opinion, in Munoz and Mateta, and I could quite comfortably, by the way, sell one of Mbeumo or Fernandes to bring in Sarah Eze if I desperately wanted a third. I could also do something like Pickford to Henderson as well if I desperately didn't want to have Jordan Pickford. So I could get a third Crystal Palace, and I've already got two of them. My midfield four are all on penalties and all fantastic. Fernandes, Mbeumo, Salah, Kluivert. Yes, Fernandes and Mbeumo don't have perfect fixtures, but they are penalty takers, set-piece takers, talisman, and 90-minute men. Fernandes and Mbeumo are never bad players to have in your team. Could Fernandes and Mbeumo outscore Sarr and Palmer? Absolutely they could. So they're not bad players. Would I have them in a wildcard? As you'll see in a second, no, I wouldn't have either of them in a wildcard because they don't probably have any doubles this season. So I'm chasing the doubles, and neither of them have great fixtures. But that doesn't make them bad players at any point. The defence outside of Munoz, Gabriel, fine, I'd have him in a wildcard. Nico Williams against United at home is absolutely fine. And Pickford's not great, but goalkeepers are so unpredictable anyway, and he'll make saves. The only issues I suppose I have is I've got a flagged Haaland and a flagged Wood, and as of, that sounds sus, and as of right now, I don't think Haaland or Wood play. Now, I've got Enzo Fernandez on the bench, so what I could do is play Enzo Fernandez instead of one of them, and then sell the other one to Isak. I wouldn't be able to sell Wood to Isak, so what I'd essentially be doing is Haaland to Isak. I could also do Haaland to Marmoush if I wanted to, or I could do Wood to Evanilson. I could do various things, but essentially sell one of Haaland or Wood to Isak, Marmoush, or Evanilson, play Enzo in a 3-5-2, the team looks fine, captain Salah, and then wildcard in 31 like I planned. So I certainly don't need the wildcard this week. The reason that I am still considering playing it is because I think if I was to build a wildcard this week, not only would it improve my team for the future, but it would also improve my team this week, as we've spoken about. And I don't really want to use a transfer before my wildcard. Like, one of the reasons I was happy to not wildcard in 30 is because I loved my team. I loved having Haaland, Wood, Mateta. I loved that front three. I was going to captain Haaland. My midfield looked good. I didn't feel like I needed a transfer. Now I'm going to have to use a transfer anyway. I almost feel like I'm wasting that transfer. Price changes come into it as well. I'm going to miss price changes tonight. I'm recording this again on Sunday evening. I'm going to miss price changes already. The longer I leave it, I'm losing team value as well, which might not be an issue if I decide to sell one of Haaland or Salah, but I'm very much on the fence, and I don't want a wild card and get caught up in the hysteria of everyone wanting to wild card, right? Because I know that's going to start to become it wasn't very popular, and it's all of a sudden going to become the popular strategy to wild card this week. So I don't want to feel like I'm getting swept into that, and I don't need the wild card. But just because you don't need the wild card doesn't mean you shouldn't play it. I just think that's also still a very, very decent team. Now, if Haaland is somehow fit and available, I don't think I'm going to wildcard. Because I think if Haaland's fit and available, I've got Haaland and Salah in place. I've already got Mateta and Munoz. I've got Cliver. Like I said, Fernandes and Mbeumo are fine. And I can just play Enzo Fernandez instead of Chris Wood. So I really do think as of right now, my wildcard probably hinges on the availability and fitness of Erling Haaland. But I think if there is major doubt around it, I probably won't take the risk. Because I just don't love my bench. Like, Enzo's okay. But then if I risked it and I had to get Anthony Robinson against Arsenal or Vandenberg against Newcastle, I mean, it really stinks. I don't want that at all. Especially in a week where other people are wildcarding, I could fall behind massively. So yeah, that's where I stand right now. I think the team is fine, but could definitely be improved. Let's look at a wildcard draft then that I've been building over the last couple of hours, compare the two teams, and then give you some of my final thoughts about whether I think I'll play the chip or not. So guys, I've jumped over to Fantasy Football Hub to just do a little bit of planning ahead, show you my wildcard draft and how it will stack up for future weeks with the projected fixtures. If you want to do this yourself, which I highly recommend doing, it's so useful at the moment, there is a link down below to check out Fantasy Football Hub. I highly recommend it. You can get 30% off if you use that link, or you can start to plan ahead a little bit for free as well. So this is my wildcard draft. Let me talk you through it before you criticize it and just say that it's definitely not finalized. It's just to give you an idea about what it could look like. And I think basically on Monday morning, so when you're watching this, I will make a decision myself and probably commit to it, just that I can give myself long enough. I don't want to be tinkering on like a Tuesday afternoon just before the Tuesday deadline, trying to work out which players I'd have in my wildcard. I want to be very, very sure if I commit to playing it. So in terms of the teams we're targeting, it's those 5 teams that I spoke about already. So obviously, Crystal Palace, you'd have 3 of them because they have the double-double. Arsenal have the double in 33 and good fixtures, so you'd want at least 2 of them, potentially 3. Same with Man City as well. I think you'd want 3 Newcastle, despite the fact that they don't double in 33, because they have good fixtures over the next 2 and they double in 32. And then outside of that, you're just filling in the gaps. Maybe a couple of Aston Villa players in there as well. You might want to have Mohamed Salah, of course, and then the team will come together. So in goal, I've gone for Raya, and I've got Gabriel as well. So double Arsenal defence. And as of right now, that's it, because I want Bukayo Saka. And we'll discuss Palmer in a second, because people are like, why have you got Palmer? That's a Bukayo Saka placeholder at the moment. So Raya and Gabriel are 2 of my 3 potential Arsenal players. And I've got Gvardiol in there. Gvardiol's not fantastic. He's arguably not worth the 6 million with the way City defend, but good fixtures, great fixture this week, got the attacking threat. I just think I want to have at least 2 City players. Marmoush will be one of them, especially if Haaland's out. So Gvardiol comes in there as well. And then Munoz is in there as my 1 Palace defender. I really like Henderson as well. I just don't think I want double Palace defence. And I don't think I can go without Munoz. So Munoz is in there, but I think Henderson's a great alternative or addition to Munoz. The other 2 defenders, if I scroll down, I've actually gone for 2 Newcastle. Now, I don't love this. I think I might want Murphy, but I also quite want an Aston Villa mid. So as of right now, the combo I've gone for with my 3 Newcastle is Isak, but then Burn and Livramento. You could also have Pope instead of Martinez, and I'll discuss Martinez in a second as well, but I just don't know that he's definitely going to play every game. Like, I think Dubravka has been better than Pope this season. That might be a controversial take. And I think Eddie Howe loves Pope, so I'm probably overthinking it. But I don't know if I want to take that risk. Whereas Burn and Livramento should be pretty nailed on. They're pretty cheap as well. Martinez is my backup goalkeeper because he's got a great fixture in 32 and 33. So whether I bench boost in 32 or 33, Emi Martinez serves me very well. Lots of people talk about Areola on the wildcard. Areola's got a terrible fixture in 32. I think it's against Liverpool. So if you're definitely wildcarding 33, Areola's got Southampton. That's great. But if you want to leave your options open, I wouldn't go for Areola. Martinez is very expensive as a backup goalkeeper, though. That is 10.5 million on goalkeepers, which feels extreme. So that's the defensive setup at the moment. I think it leaves me well set up, as we'll see for future weeks. In midfield, I've got Salah in there. I'm almost certain Salah will be on a wild card regardless, so I don't need to discuss him. Although, no double in 33. So there is some level of justification to go without Mohamed, but he's bloody fantastic. Like, I just don't want to not have Salah in my team. Palmer is in there because I think Palmer's great. He's got Spurs, Brentford, Ipswich, Fulham, Everton. Great fixtures. Wouldn't mind keeping him. But again, he's a Bukayo Saka placeholder. Even if Saka's cleared as fit, I might still have Palmer in there for Spurs at home instead of Saka against Fulham. And I want to see Saka get minutes first. So yeah, Palmer is in there just to hold a spot for Bukayo Saka for Game Week 33. I've also got Ismail Assar instead of Eze. That's mainly a budget thing. Like if I put Eze in there, that's all of my money gone. And I just don't think there's much to separate them. So I've gone for Ismail Assar. Cliver is there for the great fixture this week. He's on penalties. You can't have all doubling midfielders unless you go for Murphy and then do Livramento to Contra or something like that. But I think Clivert's great. So like I say, that could be Murphy, Livramento to an Aston Villa defender. You've got an extra doubler then for Game Week 33. But I think Clivert's really good for this week. And I want a bit of Bournemouth coverage. The other midfielder is Rodgers on the bench. I prefer Asensio and Rashford, but their minutes are not as good as Rodgers. And I think if they stay in Europe and they get through the next round, minutes will become a bit of an issue, I think, for both Asensio and Rashford, whereas Rodgers just seems to play every available minute for Aston Villa. So that would be my only concern. And as a result, I've got Rodgers in there. And also, he's nice and cheap. I think he's the cheapest of the three of them. The three forwards are going to be so template and so obvious, but it's Isak, Mateta, Marmoush. Isak and Mateta double in 32. Mateta doubles in 33. Marmoush doubles in 33. He's been looking really good. If Haaland is out, which again I don't know, he'll probably be on penalties. He'll almost definitely start as the 9, and he's got Leicester this week. That front three is the easiest part of the wild card, I think. So that's the team. That leaves me as of right now with 1.1 million in the bank. As you can see, 100% game week rating because it's a brilliant team. It looks like a free hit. So yeah, 1.1 in the bank. If I skip to 31, don't need a transfer. I shouldn't anyway. Even my bench, I've got Martinez, Rodgers, Munoz, and Dan Burn against Leicester. You could even arguably bench boost in 31 if you wanted to, but I certainly don't need a transfer, even if I pick up issues. If I then skip to 32, this is the double for Crystal Palace and Newcastle. So I've got a fully doubling defence. I've got Sarr, Isak, and Mateta. And then my other players are Raya, Salah, Palmer, Rodgers, Marmoush. And they've got games against Brentford, West Ham, Ipswich, Southampton, and Crystal Palace. It's a really, really good team. This is the first bench boost option. So bench boost 32 would be Martinez against Southampton, Gabriel against Brentford, and Gvardiol against Crystal Palace, and then Cliver against Fulham. Remember, I've got a transfer. So if I don't like any of those, if I think Cliver against Fulham is not the best option, I could sell Cliver for another midfielder, maybe someone like Asensio or someone like Rashford against Southampton. So I've got an option there if I don't like Cliver, but Gabriel and Gvardiol with home games and Martinez against Southampton, it is a super strong bench boost in 32. My other option in game week 33 is the team would look like this. At this point, I would have, let me remind myself how many free transfers. So I'd have one going into 32, two in 32, three. So I'd have 3 free transfers at this stage. I would have Raya, according to the projections, Raya, Gabriel, Gvardiol, Munoz, Sarr, Rodgers, Mateta, Marmoush, all doubling. So 8 doublers. The 3 single game week players in the starting 11 is Salah against Leicester, at the moment Palmer against Fulham, and Isak against Aston Villa. And then my bench is with another double on the bench, Martinez, so I'd have a doubling keeper, Cliver against Crystal Palace, and then at the moment, double Newcastle defence against Aston Villa. If I were to bench boost in 33, what I would essentially do is Palmer to Saka. I think I'd want to make that move, assuming that, again, that he's fit at this point because he's got the double. That would free up a little bit of money. So I'd have up to 1.6 here. And what I'd probably do is take out both Newcastle defenders for just defenders that have better fixtures or double that week. So it might be that I go for, as boring as it is because he's not a great FPL option, but Ezri Konsa. Who would I go for that week? Who has a nice... I've already got my three. I could go for another, maybe like a Kushanov, because I've already got three Arsenal. I've got three Palace. I've got double. I don't want another Aston Villa defender. Yeah, maybe even like a Kanate, a Liverpool defender. Sorry, random cut there, but let's just say I go for Kushanov in there and I want to go for another City asset. Obviously, a City attacker would probably be slightly better. That would technically give me three doubling players on the bench, right? But, I mean, I wouldn't play them ahead of Salah, but technically I would have three singlers on my bench, which would be Isak, Salah, Kluivert. But again, that's probably what the bench would look like. So is that a stronger bench boost? Let me save that plan to try and compare the two. So is Martinez, Kluivert, Konsa, Kushanov, is that a better bench boost than Martinez, Gabriel, Gvardiol, Kluivert? Probably, right? Because I've got all of the extra fixtures there just for appearance points. But this is also required in 33, three transfers, or two transfers on the defence to improve that bench boost. So is it, basically I'd probably view it as, is it 8 points better than the previous bench boost? I'm not so sure. Basically, I think what I might try to do if I wildcard this week is leave my options open for 32 or 33, which is what this wildcard in 30 would do. So if I go back to it, it gives me the options open to either wildcard in 32 or 33. If I then skip ahead to 34, having made the transfers that I've made, this is what the team would potentially look like. Now, it might not look exactly like this, right, if I don't fully commit to having 12 players from those teams. But this is the state of 34. So you would be fully committing to a free hit in 34, and then you would come back to a team roughly like this. It's pretty good for 35. Now, ignore the Kluivert double there. That's not going to happen in 35. And then 36, you can see there's lots of TBCs. I don't think there's any point planning beyond 34 as of right now. But I think that team just looks super strong across those weeks if they go as we predict. It looks so good for 30. Like, as you can see, 100% game week rating. I agree with that. You're getting so many nice fixtures in there. So that's what the wildcard would look like roughly. There are a few players that could definitely change in there. Let me now go through my final thoughts and whether I think I'll end up doing it. So guys, apologies if anything in this video has firstly been incorrect. I've tried to make sure it's all correct, but let me know if I've made any mistakes. But also if it's been a bit long and rambly. I'm obviously, as well as trying to explain this to you and try and clean up my thought process for the video, I'm also trying to process it myself and work out the best strategy for me, but also to suggest for you guys as well. So hopefully it's still been useful. So to sum up my final thoughts, and there will be at least one more video on Tuesday morning, potentially even another video outside of that, and a deadline stream on Tuesday as well. I still don't know if I'm going to wildcard this week or not. I definitely will be wildcarding in 30 or 31. So there'll be a wildcard in one of the next two game weeks. The first thing to think about is actually what would the starting 11 differences be? So this isn't just squad differences, because there are more than that, but this is starting 11 differences. Pickford versus Ryan to be the first one. Williams versus Gvardiol. Fernandes versus Sarr, Mbeumo versus Palmer/Saka, but it will probably be Palmer, Wood versus Isak, and then Haaland versus Marmoush. Of course, if Wood is out, I might play Enzo Fernandez instead, but they are upgrades. That is definitely an upgraded 6 there, but I am also selling the likes of Fernandes and Mbeumo, who if they both get a penalty each and an assist from a corner, then they could definitely outscore the alternatives. But I'm also bringing in Isak, Marmoush, Palmer, who are all on set pieces and pens as well. So you could potentially get lucky in the other direction. But those are the 6 differences between the starting 11s if I were to wildcard this week versus not. So my final thoughts are, I think the Haaland injury news is probably the deciding factor. If we get a really positive update and see him in training, I probably won't. If we are unsure, I am leaning towards doing it as of right now. I don't need a wildcard this week. I keep saying that, but it's true. The team looks fine. The weak players are the likes of Fernandes and Mbeumo, who are fantastic assets. If I'm on the fence and I'm like, oh, I really don't know if I should do it. If I'm really unsure, I should probably wait. That should probably be my sign. If I'm not sure that I need a bit more info and a bit more time to think about it. But my team for 30 would look so good that it would still be tempting. The final thing is, I do really think that these predictions are probably going to be correct. And I am sorry if they're not, but it makes me a little bit more tempted to wildcard this week because I'm pretty confident in what we're looking in terms of double 33 blank 34. And therefore, really, what more information are we waiting for other than the official confirmation? What a long video. Hopefully that's been helpful for you. If there is anything unanswered in this video, please let me know down below. I will answer in the comments, and I might also clear it up in the next video as well. So guys, there you have it. That is everything you need to know, complete guide, team selection, and much, much more. Hopefully it has been helpful. If you're still watching right now, you've got to drop a like for me. I would really, really appreciate it. Having got through the whole video, if you've got any use, smash that like button. Let's aim for like 2,000 likes on this video. And if you're not yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, please consider doing so. I'm trying to hit 150,000 before the end of the season, and every single one of you that subscribes, it really does help. Until next time, which will be at the very latest Tuesday morning, thank you very much. Bye-bye.